Hey there, guys. All right, today we're starting it. Another long adventure. So hopefully, you'll stick with me through it all. 'Cause I plan on watching two a week, like I was doing with the World War One series. Now of course I didn't start the World War One series doing it like that. But we're gonna start the World War Two series here, doing it two a week or so. And we are starting with the Polish-German War, September 1st, 1939. So we are really starting here in the beginning. I don't think the Great War started like this, did it? I thought we got or was that prologue stuff? I thought the first. It's been so long. It's been like 3 years probably since we started the World War One series. Oh my God, did I start that in 2021? Or did I start that in the beginning of 22? I think I started that in 21. Oh my God. Anyways, what I remember, I thought we got build up to the event inside of the first episode. But I can't remember. It's been so long. But with all that said, let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into a new series here.
On September 1st,
Indy, I've missed your face.
1939, the German army
A new suit.
invades Poland and the Polish-German War of 1939 begins. What? Did you think I was going to say something else? Because that's all it is. A war, an undeclared war between two European nations.
I think I like the World War One, the Great War, music more. In real time.
My name is Indy Nidell, and this channel, for the next 6 years, is going to cover the events.
They did this. Oh, yep. They did 6 years. Yeah, duh. No shit. 39 to 45. The fucking course, Ryan. Oh my God. How can you forget time? We're gonna be here for a while. Because if I do this roughly 2 episodes a week, 2027? Holy shit.
Of that war, week by week, in real time, as it grows and spirals into the
Y'all, I'm gonna tell you now, I'm probably not gonna be doing this in 2027.
deadliest conflict
Unless something changes and viewership massively increases, like I get super fucking lucky. Unless that happens, I'm not doing this until 2027. I'm telling y'all now.
in human history. There will also be special episodes that sum up how the world got to this point. Specials
Oh my, is that from? Yeah, that's from a Holocaust camp.
specials about the people, the weapons, the technology of the war, and much more. There will be crossovers and collaborations with other channels and historians, and even a series on the war against humanity fought in countries on both sides. If you would really like to see how the world went from the end of the Great War to the beginning of this one, though, we've made an entire series called Between Two Wars that not only covers the events of the interwar period, but specifically how they relate to the world situation in 1939. The link is in the description. I know that some of you will point out that the events in Japan and China in the 1930s are part and parcel of the Second World War. Some see the Spanish Civil War as a beginning point, and some see the years 1914 to 1945 as a second 30 Years' War. All these arguments have merit, but I'm going to start here on September 1st, 1939, at the beginning of the Polish-German War.
Oh, where do I've bounced back and forth as to where I see myself aligning with that World War One and World War Two separation. I think as of right now, I think I lean on the side of them being two completely separate wars. Um, because they are ideologically different in their goals as to what the aims of the war are. Really, World War One was a war about maintaining the old order, monarchy, right? Because yes, Europe's, Russia, especially Russia, and Great Britain were still monarchist. They were, I would argue, more democratic that Russia was recently, I'd say, getting more democratic in terms of some of the, like, they had those earlier revolutions in the early 1900s that, like, they had the Duma. They had some sort of system. Did the system work quite well? Not really, but they still had a system somewhat in place, a democratic system somewhat in place, as opposed to, the Ottomans, Austria-Hungary, and Germany didn't. They didn't really have a system like that. Um, and of course, Great Britain by this point was more so run by prime minister than the king. King was pretty much a figurehead at this point in time, though he still had some definite political and cultural uh, massive influence in the early 1900s. But I still consider it really a war of the old order versus the new. World War II is, you know, the rising of a sort of new order in a way. How do I want to word this? It To me, I feel like they are just fundamentally different wars in their goals. Um, World War, and also like with how the wars are treated in memory. World War One, even to this day, and at the time of its declaration, was seen as just another war, and we kind of also view World War One in that same lens, as it was just another war, an exceedingly brutal war, but just another war that Europeans have fought before. This one just affected way more people, right? Um, but when we talk about World War II, then like even though genocide and terrible shit was happening in World War One, it's kind of underlooked in comparison to the atrocities of World War II. We highlight the atrocities of World War II, and rightfully so. In regards to highlighting the atrocities, we should highlight the atrocities of World War One way more than we do. You know what I mean. But you know, like when we talk about World War II, the discussion of genocide is intrinsically linked to it, and I think that has made it, in the way we discuss it, a different war. I don't know if I'm making any sense here. I'm yapping off the top of my dome. But then, when we talk about World War One, we don't intrinsically link genocide to it. We don't intrinsically link the Armenian genocide to World War One like we do the Holocaust and the other peoples Hitler targeted of World War Two. We don't talk like they are not intrinsic as in the Armenian genocide isn't as intrinsically linked to World War One. Um, so that's all I have to say on that. I think okay, wait, no. I think I lean more towards probably World War Two starting in 37 or um whenever the Marco Polo Bridge incident would be. I think when Japan took Manchuria, I think at that point that was still a further progression of aggression was still avoidable when Japan took that. Like Japan could have stopped there. Then they made the decision to not in 37 and had the Marco Polo Bridge incident. I'm remembering things right. And then they invaded China. And from there, I think we were on a road of no return to, we're going down to mass war once more. Okay. I'm gonna stop yapping there.
Though it was actually supposed to begin already at the beginning of the week. On August 25th, Adolf Hitler orders the German attack to begin the 26th, but cancels the order at the last minute after learning Britain and Poland have signed a formal alliance, and that Benito Mussolini would not bring Italy into a war at this point on Germany's side. But on the 31st, Hitler decides to invade the following day. He signs the order at noon, and German troops move to the border. At 8 p.m., the radio station at Gleiwitz is attacked. The attackers are SS men dressed in Polish uniforms. SS is Schutzstaffel, The Nazi paramilitary.
So that's like confirmed? That's a confirmed thing that it was a staged event? I've always heard of it as a whenever I've been told about it, I've always heard it as a we're not sure, but it's highly implied that it was a staged attack. Right? Like I totally believe that it was a staged attack. It's just that I've never heard it as a definitive it was before up until now.
Organization used for security, surveillance, and terror. Anyhow, they leave behind the bodies of some concentration camp inmates in Polish uniforms. When German troops begin their advance across the border the next morning, Hitler gives this Polish attack as one of the reasons for invasion. That same evening, the Soviet Union, who had signed a sort of neutrality pact with Germany just over a week ago, beats the Japanese army far to the east. In fighting on the Mongolian border, Georgy Zhukov's forces overcome the final resistance of the Japanese 6th Army at Khalkhin Gol. So, as one war is coming to an end, another is beginning. Now, that Soviet-Japanese conflict is an undeclared war that has gone on for several months along the border. Although there'd been tension since Japan occupied Manchuria in 1931 and set up the puppet state of Manchukuo, and there were more and more frequent border clashes. I'll talk more about this in a few weeks, and we'll also cover Japan's invasion and war with China in between two wars. But here, in 1939, the Japanese on one side, and the Mongolians and Russians on the other, have different ideas as to what the actual border is. The fighting had escalated over the summer, but had become a stalemate by the end of July. Zhukov broke that stalemate by attacking on August 20th with artillery and aircraft in the first fighter-bomber offensive in Soviet history. Over 50,000 Soviet and Mongolian troops were on the east bank of the Khalkhin Gol River. As the infantry crossed the river, and it, the Air Force, and the artillery pinned down the Japanese center, armored units went around the flanks and encircled the Japanese from both sides. They were unable to break free, and the Russians kept hitting them with artillery, and by now, the Japanese forces on the Mongolian side of the border are destroyed. On September 15th, Japan and the Soviet Union will agree to a ceasefire. I mentioned that Germany and the Soviet Union had signed a pact, and they had, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, named after the two nations' foreign ministers who signed it. This was a non-aggression neutrality pact between the two, and it laid out Poland, Romania, Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia into German and Soviet spheres of interest, anticipating some sort of possible territorial rearrangement of these countries in the very near future. Back in April, Stalin had actually proposed a military alliance with Britain and France, which was received with mixed feelings. In July, they began talks, but kept running into the stumbling block of Russian troops entering Polish soil if there was a need to contain Germany. The Poles figured, and rightly, that once there, those troops would never leave, so those talks weren't really going anywhere. But a pact with Germany, well, that would give Stalin what he wanted without having to fight, and for Hitler, it would divide potential enemies. Neither Berlin nor Moscow saw Poland as a legitimate state, and its borders had been established just 20 years ago in the Treaty of Versailles. True, the Poles had beaten the Red Army to secure their independence, famously demolishing it at the Battle of Warsaw. But Hitler and Stalin thought that Poland's whole existence was owed to Allied interference. The Poles, for their part, though they were aware that Russia was the enemy, were not aware of any immediate Soviet plans for Poland, and were focused.
I mean, we want to be real technical about it and a bit of a dick about it. They're right in that Poland's existence at this point in time is owed to Allied intervention. Poland should exist as a state, as a recognized state, yes. They should have their independence. People should have self-determination in their homeland. But, unfortunately, humans are dicks.
On the obvious threat of Germany. They knew that their army was not up for the task of beating the Wehrmacht, the German armed forces. If an attack came, their hopes were for an Anglo-French offensive in the west that would split the German forces. Well, that German attack now comes. On September 1st at 4:45 a.m., Germany invades Poland with no declaration of war. Operation Fallweiss, Plan White, is 53 German divisions, including 6 armored. General Walter von Brauchitsch is the commander-in-chief, but here's the roll call.
Literally, I've never heard of that man before.
Fedor von Bock leads Army Group North, which is made up of the 3rd Army under Georg von Kuchler and the 4th Army under Gunther von Kluge. General Gerd von Rundstedt leads Army Group South, Johannes Blaskowitz with the 8th Army, Walter von Reichenau the 10th, and Wilhelm List the 14th. The Panzer Corps is under Heinz Guderian and Paul von Kleist. Air support, some 1,600 aircraft, is led by Albert Kesselring and Alexander Löhr. Rundstedt's forces advance from Silesia, and this is the main German attack. Blaskowitz is on the left, heading towards Poznan. List on the right towards Krakow, with Reichenau the main thrust in the center to the Vistula River between Warsaw and Sandomierz. Kuchler from East Prussia heads south towards Warsaw and the Bug River to the east. Kluge will cross the Polish corridor and then head south. The Polish have 23 divisions, though 7 more are being put together. 1 armored division, and not a whole lot of artillery. They do have a lot of cavalry, and this is a good time to dispel the myth that Polish cavalry spent the war attacking tanks with lances. Although this day does see a Polish cavalry charge to cover retreating infantry, which scatters German infantry, but behind that was armored cars with machine guns that kills half the attackers within minutes. There are 2, and only 2 occasions, according to Max Hastings, in which Polish horsemen engaged tanks. Anyhow, the Polish reserves are called up August 31st, so they're not yet mobilized. They have 500 planes, but these are obsolete compared to the Germans. Polish commander Edward Rydz-Smigły has his strongest forces in the northwest, especially Poznan and the Polish corridor. His plan is to hold the Germans to only gradual gains. However, since he's put his men so far forward, he risks serious defeat if his units are overrun before reinforcements from the reserves can arrive. The German method of attack is anything but a repeat of 1914. First, sudden air attacks will try to destroy the Polish Air Force while it's still on the ground. Bombers will go for railways and roads, but also drop their payloads on civilian centers, creating mass panic and confusion. This chaos is made worse by aircraft also machine gunning civilian refugees fleeing from advancing soldiers.
What the fuck?
Just in the first few hours, the Polish government reports that 130 Poles are killed by air raids on Polish towns like Warsaw and Gdynia. Further attacks come by land, of course. Waves of motorized infantry and light tanks push as far ahead as possible. Heavier tanks make their way through the countryside, bypassing fortified positions. Eventually, the infantry, supported by artillery, will come after to mop up whatever pockets of resistance remain. Hitler's plan here is not simply to regain territory lost in 1918 at the end of the Great War. He wants to impose German rule on Poland. In fact, behind the infantry, he has sent in 3 SS Death's Head regiments to take care of police and security measures in the new territory. Today, September 1st, at Sachsenhausen concentration camp, one of their bases, their commander, Theodor Eicke, explains to his officers just what those police and security measures are. In protecting Hitler's Reich, Eicke explained, the SS would have to incarcerate or annihilate every enemy of Nazism, a task that would challenge even the absolute and inflexible severity which the Death's Head regiments had learned in the concentration camps. Britain and France demand that Germany withdraw from Poland. The British army is mobilized, and the evacuation of young children from London and other areas thought vulnerable begins on this day 1 of the Polish-German War of 1939. Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf, his political manifesto autobiography, that not only should people of the same blood be in the same Reich, but that once this had been achieved, then Germany would have the moral right to take foreign territory. He lays out his policy on page 1. But even though every German couple was given one by the registry office when they married, and even though he had steered Germany towards war for years, a great many people did not take him seriously and chose to believe his recent statements that he did not want war. They should have instead believed him when he wrote this about his plans once all the Germans were part of the Reich. The plow is then the sword, and the tears of war will produce the daily bread for generations to come. If you would like to check out that Between Two Wars series and get more background to this series, you can click right here for that. And if you'd like this,
And that was episode 1 of the World War II series. This is the Polish-German War, September 1st, 1939. I have nothing to add here at the end of this video. Feels good to have Indy back on my screen. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.